Guys ready? Ready down here? I'd like to call the June meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission that's been rescheduled for May 25th today, just to keep that clear. We also had one the 1st of May. I'd like to first ask Paul to call the roll.
Alan Brown.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
Suzanne Broadbent.
Here.
Heather Clemmer.
Present.
Neela Crank Clements.
Present.
Greg Eddington.
Present.
George Massey.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
And Ann Zacharitz.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to go over the meeting procedures on the back of the agenda, front page of the agenda. The chairman will announce each case and ask interested parties to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will discuss details of the case, calling on staff for details. Following this discussion, commissioners may choose to ask questions of the parties present. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address and to present their position as succinctly as possible. The Commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. Following the public hearing on application, the Commission will take one of the following actions. 1, approve the certificate of appropriateness. 2, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the Commission determines that circumstances have changed. And 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. Contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. And finally, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustment. Okay, with that, we will get started from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer. Katie?
Only 2 items. We still have an online survey related to the development of the city's citywide historic preservation plan, and the link is there in the agenda if you haven't taken the survey already, or if you want to go to a dozen or so different computers and take it over and over again. Just kidding. Don't do that. And then the Statewide Preservation Conference, which is the reason that this meeting is on today and not the first Wednesday of June, is coming up next week, June 1st through 3rd, 2016. We have several commission members and staff going, and it's open to the public as well. And there's more information about that on the State Historic Preservation Office's website.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Item 3, acceptance of minutes of the previous meeting. Anybody have any comments or motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Been moved by Neela Crank Clemens, a second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted. On to Code Enforcement Report, item 4. There he is.
Inspector Joseph Cobb of the City of Oklahoma City Code Enforcement. You guys have any questions over the past month?
Okay, any questions?
On 1517 Northwest 37th Street, that is in Putnam Heights, and that property is bank-owned. How do you go about notifying bank-owned properties? Do we have any luck with dealing with them?
That property is currently under the property maintenance program for abandoned and blight homes. So a citation is issued to the legal owner every 45 days until it comes into compliance. It's the current owner is on the county record. It is abandoned, but it is owned by a bank.
Bank of America. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much. And The air conditioning has come on, so. So on to now item 5, continuance announcements and requests.
We have one new request for continuance, that's HPCA 16-00082, to be continued to August 3rd.
Which one was that again?
It is,
D6, okay.
so we just need a motion to continue that.
Move to continue 16-00082 to the August 3rd meeting.
Moved by Jeff Parks and second by Ann Zakowitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items continued. Public hearings. Katie.
C16-21919 at 617 Northwest 19th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Receive Historic Preservation Commission comments regarding structures in the process of being declared dilapidated as initiated by the City of Oklahoma City Development Services Code Enforcement pertaining to 1, properties that contribute to the historic integrity of the historic district, and 2, effective proposed demolition of structure on the historic character of the property and district. A couple of explanations before we start. You'll see that this says C16 and not HPCA. That's because we are not granting a certificate of appropriateness for this. We are commenting upon a code enforcement action. When the city is declaring a structure dilapidated and the city is going to demolish it, the HP Commission does not get to approve that activity. We merely provide a comment upon the historic significance and integrity of the structure. And previously, you might remember that we used to give those an HPCA number, and we've just recently started tracking them differently because that was confusing to people. It looked like they'd received a CA for something when in fact we don't get to actually do that. And then the final note is just that this is for the garage only, not for the primary structure.
Okay. Is the owner present? Would you like to speak on this? Any questions for? Go ahead. If you'd like to come to the center podium.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, may I remain seated?
Well, you do have a microphone right here, Paul. Does this work? I turned it on.
Thank you, sir. My name is Winston Howard. I own property at 617 Northwest 19th, as you see on the projections. I've owned that property for some 30-odd years. It is in bad shape. I concede the bad shape of the property. I have been trying to sell the property, and we have a contract for sale. There is an old income tax lien against the property. We have supplied what information that has been requested from the IRS to get that lien released. I cannot have any more authority than what I have with the Internal Revenue Service. I have not heard from them. They keep telling me they need one more little piece of information, one more little piece of information. We have a buyer who is present here today that has a contract on that house. We have another person that said if he does not want to exercise his contract, that she will buy it. And we had 2 contractors out there today to look the property over. I think it is repairable. The contractors think it is repairable. The contract owner thinks it is repairable. And we request the commission to give us time to work out with the IRS and with the contractors the repair for that building. If it's all right with you, I'll let my son, who can hear and talk better than I can, discuss it.
Well, I think we're going to be supporting you on this. We don't make the decision on the demolition. We're just going to recommend on the historic character of the house. Does anybody have any comments on the house?
Mr. Batiki? You're under contract to purchase the home?
Yep.
And do you plan to rehab that detached garage apartment?
Yes, we don't plan to dilapidate
Yeah,
anything. So
okay.
we usually like to go in and preserve them and bring them back.
Okay.
So the only issue has been, we haven't been able to close because of the
Right.
IRS
Sure.
lien. And-
Can you
Sounds like
sign in
your
for us?
Huh?
Sign in for us?
Yes, I will.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Sorry.
Well, I would support not or
Well-
doing this, not recommending demolition, since,
Well, what we basically are forwarding it with,
right.
with the two comments that the staff has.
I will
Katie, do we just
talk, I'm sorry.
Do we just do we just say that the commission forwards the following comments?
We would make a motion to forward the comments. You can add to those comments. So if you wanted to make a comment specifically referencing the information that you've received today about feasibility of repair and that they're trying to, that information, you can certainly add those to your comments and they'll be forwarded on for further review.
I think we should add something about that. The owner is under contract with the buyer who's local, who rehabs in these neighborhoods, and feels that it is feasible to rehab the garage apartment and not tear it down. I would like to forward that comment along with the two comments recommended by staff.
Second.
Okay, is there anybody else who'd like to speak? I thought we saw somebody.
Good afternoon. I'm Shannon Raisler. I own the property behind the structure on 20th Street, 612 Northwest 20th, and I've lived there for about 8 years. This property has been, and the pictures really don't do it justice. It's in a terrible condition. It's literally falling apart. It's a health hazard. It's housing a bunch of wildlife. I think it's a mosquito trap. You can't see the back of it. It's really my view from my backyard, right? So I don't know. I mean, I know you guys aren't approving the demolition or not, and I sympathize with the predicament the owner is in. But as a property owner, right, behind this house, it's a long time to do something about this problem, right? The house in front of the garage has been vacant. I have a picture of a raccoon who's the current resident at the window of the house. And we like the raccoon. We've given him a name. I don't have anything against the raccoon, but I want, if the city is moving forward, I see that actually as a good thing. This structure is not part of the original house. I think it was built in the 50s or 60s. So in terms of its historic, appropriate, whether it's part of the historic nature of the property, I'm not so sure. I guess my concern, if somebody could tell me that we're moving forward in the next year and this is really going to be taken care of, terrific. But again, as a property owner, I really think this is a hazard. The retaining wall behind it is falling down. Incidentally, the property behind that is a rental property, and so you don't have other interested, I think, owners here because you've got tenants in the buildings right behind that. So they're less, and you've got cars. It's basically a parking lot. And then my property that looks basically at the back of this, which is completely falling apart. So I just want to add my views as a property owner. Yeah, the back is much worse than the front, actually.
What is your opinion on the appropriate time frame for a remodel to take place?
Yesterday.
I mean, how much time would you think they should have, to address the problem?
Well, I mean, I don't think they should have a whole lot more time. Just like I said, I really do think this is a public health hazard, right? I mean, the house itself as well. I mean, vacant properties are never a good thing, but I know from living so close to it that it's now housing, like I said, wildlife, various possums and raccoons, and I think because the roof is caving in, it's probably got standing water, and it's a mosquito trap, which is a concern for me going into the summer with 2 small kids, right? So I mean, as soon as possible, I really want to see this fixed.
I think we sympathize with all the comments. We really need to more comment on the historic integrity and recommend it or not. So.
Yeah, in this part of the process, we're not commenting on how dilapidated it is or isn't. That's kind of a different process, and I certainly appreciate what you're saying about its dilapidated nature. But as we evaluate the historic nature, I think the staff had said it does have a historic significance in the, at least that was their point.
Well, I reviewed the materials for this, and I'm not so sure. Maybe you guys can discuss that, but I don't know what your practice is in the past. It's a garage. You guys usually are much more lenient in granting various approvals when it comes to garages. It's a structure from later, right, in this property's history. Personally, I don't know that it's all that historic. I don't want that aspect of it to hold up what I think is an appropriate process here. Right? That's all I'll say.
Could we hear from the code enforcement? Could you just tell us what the next step is going to be?
The next step, since it's been, right now it's in a research process on hold until this committee sends over its recommendation. There are, in my case, under this case number and public information, there are more pictures of the rear of the property, which there is no siding holes. There are holes in the main roof. There are close-ups of those. It will go in front of City Council as soon as I turn in the paperwork. After I receive the recommendation, the paperwork is compiled and sent to City Council. It will be declared and then posted. After the posting, it will go up probably a couple more inspections. If the property sells, it will have to go under a new ownership and new notification of the new owners. In that time, it'll probably be inspected at least 2 more times by City Council before it's awarded, and after that, it goes up to bid.
How much time does all that take?
That, it depends on, each case is kind of unique. Some of them, I've seen some of them go years. I have other dilapidated in historic preservation that have gone nearly a year, depending on how much work is actively being done to the property. Once it's declared dilapidated, it has to be repaired to be taken off that list. And only City Council can remove it from there.
If the ownership changes, does that put a delay for the new owner?
It'll just be a
change of ownership
and a re-notification.
In past cases, it's my understanding that if the owner comes to you with a new plan and then proceeds with that plan in a timely manner, that you will continue to give them time to complete repairs?
I cannot give them time on dilapidated. That is City Council only.
So they would have to go to City. So the next step would be for the owner and proposed new owner to go to City Council?
Yes.
Okay.
Under my inspections, it's already been notified as dilapidated. It is just because of the HP regulations that I have to put in a research for the notification. So as far as my inspections, it will continue to be notified and coded in our system as a dilapidated structure until it is either removed or repaired.
So we're hoping that the plan goes forward in time to save the house.
Could I ask what other health concerns are investigated with regard to animals and things like that, and possible disease and things like that?
Well, I don't do disease. I mean, DEQ does, stuff can be reported to DEQ for standing water, stuff like that. Animal control can work, wildlife. Me, I work, there's been, the grass gets high. That can cause insects, rodents, vermin to live on it, dead limbs, trees. All that stuff also has to be maintained as inspected on the properties.
For clarification, though, we're just discussing the garage today.
We are just discussing the garage. The property itself has had issues with property maintenance, but the garage is in the dilapidated state.
We had a motion and a second a while ago, yes, to forward the comments with an additional comment from Mila.
Turn my microphone on. All in favor of the recommendation?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we're going to recommend this to the city council. Thanks for your comments, and hopefully your plan will go forward. Oh, really? Okay. Would you like to speak, sir?
We were just going to add that, obviously, we've had a contract to close and we haven't been able to. We're going to see if we can figure out a contract where we can go ahead and go in and start some of the work. Maybe talk to the inspector as to what is most important to take it off the dilapidated list.
He's right back there. So.
Maybe, yeah, exactly. Talk to the neighbors and see what's their concerns and see if we can fix those things.
Right.
We'll just have to go with the owner and see what kind of contract we have to put in so that we can secure our ownership and make everybody happy.
That would be a good
Go from there.
first step. All right, thank you. Sir?
My name is Bob Howard. I am the son of Winston. I just found out about this 2 days ago, so I'm pretty new at this. I have visited with the gentleman who wants to buy, the lady that would buy if he doesn't, with the city administrators for inspections and all this. And I want to thank you for giving us a little bit of time. We just figured this out, that we're going to get him or her to start on this just as soon as they can get the recommendations of what you all want done. I am going to put my name and address down here so that all this paperwork comes to me, so I will make sure it will be taken care of.
Okay, if you would sign in, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, good luck on that.
Thank you very much.
So on to National Register nominations. B.
NRHP 16-00002 at 2000 Remington Place, Ward 7. Consideration and possible action on a resolution recommending the National Register nomination of Lincoln Park Bathhouse, a.k.a. the OKC Zoozeum, to the Mayor and City Council, the Oklahoma Historic Preservation Review Committee, the State Historic Preservation Office, and the Keeper of the National Register. This nomination was prepared by and for the City of Oklahoma City Zoo and the Zoological Trust to nominate what's now known as the Zoozeum, the Museum of the History of the Zoo, but was historically the Lincoln Park Bathhouse, to the National Register of Historic Places. The building predates the zoo use, obviously, and was constructed by the Civil Conservation Corps as part of a New Deal program for labor and development of infrastructure, public improvements. The zoo has developed and grown around the bathhouse, but it retains its historic integrity. And staff was really excited to see a nomination come through for our zoo, which has some really fascinating history to it, and some amazing historic structures that are still there that are part of that development. Linda Ozan from the State Historic Preservation Office and Sherry Vance, who prepared the nomination, are here to answer any questions.
Okay, welcome.
Linda Ozan with the State Historic Preservation Office, 800 Nazi Zudi Drive in Oklahoma City. So I can answer any questions you may have.
I just have a question for Katie. The recommendation is to recommend this to the Mayor and City Council, then adopt a resolution? What is the resolution?
So the resolution, we always do this part. It's our little formal statement of, and it's at the very back. Yep, all the whereases and therefores about it being eligible for the National Register of Historic Places.
So it's a resolution to recommend.
It's a resolution recommending it.
Right.
Yep.
All right.
I can say we were very excited that the city initiated this nomination. Our office wasn't actually involved with it until they brought it to us. We have some additional resources at the zoo that we'll be looking at as well, and hopefully initiating some other nominations within the neighborhood, because there's quite a few historic resources out there that really do deserve to be recognized. So.
That's great.
So I'm sorry, did you say the zoo initiated the nomination? Oh, great. Good. I'm glad they see that and appreciate that.
They came to one of our workshops to learn how to write the nomination.
Good. Success.
Okay.
In
All in favor, so is it?
Recommend the nomination of Lincoln Park Bathhouse to the mayor and city council, and adopt the resolution provided as part of the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Neil Crank Clements and seconded by Heather Clemmer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Recommended?
See some of you next week then, in Enid.
And on to the consent docket.
Two items on the consent docket. Can have a motion to approve both of those or answer any questions about either case.
Anybody have any questions or would like to consider separately? Or is there a motion for approval?
I'll move.
Go ahead.
I'll move approval.
Second. That's Suzanne's first motion. Moved by Suzanne.
Good job. Oh, I'm sorry.
Of the consent docket.
Okay. I move approval of the consent docket.
She's keeping us legal.
And I do in fact second that motion.
Moved by Suzanne Broadbent and seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, consent docket is approved. And cases for individual consideration.
Okay. Before we start on the first case for individual consideration, if you are here for a consent docket item, you're approved and you can go. And you will get courtesy notice followed by your CA in the mail. HPCA 16-00003 at 631 Northwest 16th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application of Ralph and Susan McCoy for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install dormer on back of house required.
Okay. Welcome, you must be the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Or the owner?
My daughter's the occupant, yes.
Okay. We've seen this before.
We saw this case a few months ago, and I wonder, we gave some direction to the owner and wondered if you had looked at any of the options or...
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We looked and pretty much were in agreement with what came out of that. And I apologize, last month I had a travel conflict and couldn't get here in time. But generally, a full agreement with what was discussed at that meeting. And I know since then, the Mesta Park has come back with their recommendation. And I think we're very comfortable with complying and making those changes related to the material that was used on it to make it meet the same material that's on the siding of the rest
The
of the
staff is recommending denial of
Oh, I
this
don't-
application.
Okay, I don't.
Katie, would you help on that?
Sure. So since that last meeting, we haven't had additional information from the applicant. So because we hadn't had any new information and because the application was out of continuances, our only option was to either approve it with no changes or deny it. And based on the commission's initial feedback and the lack of any proposed changes, our recommendation was denial. If the applicant's willing to address the change in the siding, which was one of the issues raised, then that's something that the commission could potentially approve with conditions, that be incorporated into an approval. I think the only other issue other issues were raised about the visibility of it and about the window with the leaded glass. So might need to be discussion on whether or not those issues are being addressed.
And is there not the additional information that was provided for the last meeting? Is that not a part of this?
The additional information that they had at the last meeting was the information about similar windows on dormers and houses,
Yeah,
and then as well as a roof plan. I don't think we ever had any back and forth about changing the siding material. But if something was sent about that, then I apologize.
No, I think that was a discussion about the materials, what I drew from the first, and also the need for the redrawing of to compare the front, what is the front dormer with the back, which is what we submitted. And then there was a comparable for the windows. I mean, this house has, I believe, 5 what I'm going to call feature windows. All of them are leaded glass. They're not functional. They're just purely for cosmetic. 2 on the front, 3 on the sides, and like a portal. What was submitted was the others comparable to what was in the back from the other neighborhood. I don't know if those photos are available.
They are in the staff report. They're not on the PowerPoint.
Okay.
But,
and I think if you look there are 3 on that. There are 3 on that, if that can be socialized there. There are 3 that are comparable to size and structure, and I think in keeping with the architecture. You see the portal on the right, the one on the left is the leaded glass. The round one on the right, that's on the west side. The east side has another portal type window, much like the circle. And then you've got the side front. And I don't know if you can get the east side or not.
And do you have so what are you proposing to use as siding material?
The same material that is on historic.
On the house?
Of the house. We just go back to the natural material.
Okay. I've reviewed the material, and I feel like if that's going to be done, that I would move to approve.
Can I say something before we go?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, unless, and that the condition would be that Katie would have to approve the siding.
Okay, my comment, and maybe I'm just going on record or maybe asking for clarification, but this staff report pretty well lays out that, well, 3.7.17 said it's not appropriate under dormers, it's not appropriate to locate new features on front or street facing elevations such as on corner lots. And then there's a recommendation for denial, which seems to me amply supported by this, and I drove by it yesterday, and it absolutely is a corner lot that's visible, and this says it is not appropriate. So how are we getting past that to say it is appropriate? Is there a unique circumstance?
I mean, if we're not going to allow visible, if we're not going to allow anything visible to be on a corner lot, to be viewed from the side, then I guess I would just wish that the guidelines would just state that, because it seems to put us, we go back and forth. I mean, we've looked at other additions, 2-story additions, garage changes, bench changes, all sorts of stuff on corner lots. And, I mean, I wouldn't want there's a lot of things I think that a person that owns a corner lot might be restricted from doing. But just in my opinion, this particular one would be, it's small, and I understand. I wish you would have come before you did it, but in this case, it might have turned out a little different. But I think I probably would have approved it to make the addition. It's small enough that I don't think that it is an issue. That's just my thought. I understand what you're saying, Greg. I mean, it's difficult, but when it says you can't, then it just seems like that we just need, it seems like we do say yes to many types of corner things, even though we struggle with, can you see it from the street? I mean, I do think there's big things. We've let people do things behind fences. Also, it's a challenging guideline.
It is. The corner lot usually has sort of a higher standard, but it isn't that nothing can happen on a corner lot.
Right.
Things do happen on corner lots.
In this instance, I think it would just be a unique circumstance that the size of the dormer is not detrimental to the visual appearance of the side elevation.
Not to be argumentative, but to help with, addressing a unique circumstance, if we look at the wording of that guideline, must be located only on non-primary facades. And as we've talked about before, non-primary is not a black and white definition. That's an assessment of what are the primary elevations of the house, what are the most visible, what are the character-defining elevations. And then it says not appropriate to locate on front or street-facing elevations. And this is actually on the rear elevation, which is not the street-facing elevation, although you can see it from the side street. if that's a distinction that anyone...
That was one of mine. I think if the gable was turned the opposite direction and you plopped a dormer that was facing the street, that might be a different situation. Once again, better to see prior to construction. But
Though, the one before that Kay just quoted, doesn't mention dormers, but talks about new roof features must be located on back slopes and not visible from the public right-of-way. It doesn't say dormers, it says
Right.
roof features.
Right. I understand,
So
but
that's what I think what Greg's talking about more than the second one. Is that correct?
Well, both of them. And,
I'm just
and
saying that-
I don't think this is the worst thing in the world or
Right.
anything. Don't
I
get me
know
wrong.
it.
I mean,
I know
looked at
it. I just,
but
that's, then I guess I'm just it's just trying to be consistent. It just seems that we've allowed lots of different things on corner lots. We've always struggled with them, but we have allowed things. So that's why I'm saying if we can't have them, it seems like we should just make this agreement kind of like the garage deal. If you can see it from the side, then you can't have it. I mean, it's a tough one.
Any more comments?
Yes?
I understand where you're coming from, but I disagree to some extent. Some regs with respect to corner lots are permissive, some are mandatory, and I read this as mandatory. And I don't see any wiggle room in a mandatory
Is the
regulation.
mandatory part the roof part?
It must.
The must.
The
Must be located only on non-primary facades.
And
Not appropriate to locate, sorry, I can't read, new features on front or street-facing elevations such as on corner lots. It's a corner lot, and it says it must be located only on non-primary facades.
So we had comments from the neighborhood that recommended approval of this item, and we've also had comments from the neighborhood noting that the mature trees here, at least at certain times of the year, block this facade.
I saw that too, and I drove by, and it's sure not blocking it now, and there are leaves all over the trees.
So I understand your point, but to the must, I think how we define a non-primary facade is also, we have a little bit more discretion there than if it just said must not be visible.
But the one before that says must not be visible.
Right.
But
so if you
I do
that
think
one
we have
applies.
guidelines that very specifically talk about dormers.
Versus the other. Yeah, okay.
I included it in the staff
You
report.
did.
So.
So our two lawyers are interpreting it strictly. Three. Oh, that's right. What does our third lawyer say?
Well, so maybe I missed it, but so there are two different guidelines. One of them talks about new roof features, such as roof ventilators, antennas, satellite dishes, and skylights. But then there's an entirely separate one that talks about new dormers. So it would lead one to believe that new dormers are considered separate and apart from roof features. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just wondering the distinction. So.
No, quite possibly. So then it depends on how you read 3.717, which says must be located on non-primary facades. Again, a must, and it is not appropriate to locate on street-facing elevations such as on corner lots. So again, if this is considered street-facing, maybe it's not because it's turned toward the back. But anyway, that's what I was going for.
Yeah. Okay.
It was just pointed out to me that one philosophy is to go with the more specific guideline, which would be 0.17, which specifically says dormers. So then it gets down to is it street facing or not. I have to agree that it's not street facing. It's visible from the public right of way, but it's not facing the street. So I'm being a lawyer.
No, that makes some sense.
So, do I want to make a motion to cut to the chase here?
You have a motion.
Did you make a motion? No. You were going to.
I did not.
She said she would make a motion.
I said I
She
would
didn't
make
actually.
a motion, but I am not going to make a motion that I'm going to lose. You may make a motion, and I will vote accordingly.
Did you make a
I'm not going to make a
You're
motion.
not going to. Okay. Anybody else would like to? Sit down.
Okay, if I'm understanding, the architects in the room agree that it is not a street-facing elevation. I mean, that's kind of an architectural term more than a legal term, so I need a little...
That's what I think. Right.
Well, I'm actually okay with it then, so I'll
For all that.
Sure. Yeah, hey. I'll move to approve 16-00003. Well, I can't say with the specific findings here because they go the other way. So, based on a finding that although it is visible, it is not on a street-facing elevation, and I suppose with the condition that the materials are approved by staff.
Okay.
Second.
It's a hard one. So moved by Greg Eddington and seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, we need hands. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Well, you've been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Didn't mean to sound surprised. All right, next case.
HPCA 16-00011 at 529 Northwest 24th Street, Paseo, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application of Floyd Simon for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows, elective. You have at your seats some documentation, just photos of windows that the applicant intends to replicate. At the property, we've followed up to request some additional dimensions on those windows, but that is, they propose to have windows constructed to match these. The one other concern that, or question that staff had is that the windows as they currently exist, or one set of the windows is a triple set of windows with the center window higher than the other two. The bottom sills are not all even, and they propose to make them straight across, and staff had concerns about kind of verifying that that was the historic condition.
Okay. So, Marva, are you representing the owner?
I am.
In what capacity? Because you're not listed. That's why we were asking.
We own this house and sold it, so we've been helping the owner with the contracting and the work on it.
Staff has correspondence identifying Marva as a representative.
Okay. All right. Is that good? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Comments?
So which is the window with the higher center sill?
It is the one on the right, on the east part of the front porch, Jim.
Okay, so the center window is sort of behind that brick.
It is. You can't really
column.
tell with the plywood on
Right,
it that
right.
it is different. Those three windows and the three windows on the west side behind the tree were all changed out at some point with aluminum windows, and we have a lot of the historic windows left on other elevations, but not on this side. And so we've taken some of the plaster off, and there is no reason to think that different size window was original. It looks like it was framed in and adapted to maybe some windows they had or something.
Okay. I was kind of wondering why that would have ended up as a different sill height, trying to imagine.
Not very far off the floor.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty low, so it's not like a piano window or
Right.
any kind of accent window.
It's hard to believe they would do something like that, except by some modification at some point. Plus the way they were normally framed in with a trim being continuous at the bottom.
The trim wasn't on that one. I mean, it was pretty hodgepodgey in a couple of places. A lot of the windows still had their trim and baseboards and things, but not that window.
That says something right there. Okay.
And I think we owe Ms. Friddle some dimensions and things on windows, and we've sent some, but we're happy to furnish that information. We'd just like to see if you all would give us the ability to get staff approval on it. I think we've sent some drawings in, but we just need to finish the dimensions. Is that right?
Yep, we've got good pictures and some dimensions. There were just some details that, for consistency with what we include in the certificate of appropriateness, we wanted to make sure we had all of the information. But I think it's like I emailed with the applicant and said it's just a tape measure, that writing some more stuff in. So.
Okay, so how do you guys feel about that?
Anybody have any questions? All ready to make a motion? No? Okay. I move to approve HPCA 16-00011 with the specific finding that the replacement of non-historic windows with appropriate windows that meet the guidelines is encouraged, and with the condition that the applicant or the owner, it's the same person, provide all of the requested dimensions of the replacement windows to staff before the CA is issued.
As well as product.
As well as product information, yes.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Moved by Neela Crank-Clemens, seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved.
Thank you.
All right, next.
HPCA 16-00039 at 321 Northwest 22nd Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Joy Barisol for JB Design LLC by Heather Ruba for certificate of appropriateness to install porch columns required. And this is there were some non-historic metal porch columns at this structure that were replaced without a CA, and they're now applying for approval for that replacement.
So you are?
Paul Barcel, the owner of the property.
You're the owner?
I'm Joy Barcel's husband. We own
okay.
JB Design together, and we own the
Is that
property.
acceptable? Same last name?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's unique enough, I hope, so.
All right. Any questions for the owner?
So staff had recommended a continuance, right? Because the columns, kind of an unusual for the scale and size of the structure and what they would sit on.
Yes, can I kind of give you the backstory, or?
Please.
Is that okay? Basically, we've owned the property since February. When we purchased it, it had wrought iron columns where those now wood columns are. They did not look appropriate to us. We had talked to a freelance architect who kind of gave us some bad input, saying that we could change them. We've come to find out that that's not appropriate, and we apologize for taking actions before getting approval. So we have changed them out. They're wrought iron that, like I said, wasn't appropriate for the time period. We put in solid cedar beams there and framed them out. We felt that that was appropriate, and it stayed true to the architecture. The constraint we have is that wall that they're sitting on. It's a brick wall that's about 6 inches wide, so they can't be a proportionate scale that you might see in other areas of the neighborhood. One thing to point out was that doing the back research of the property, it appears those wrought iron columns were put in around 2004 or later, around that time frame. So between some pictures we had, they showed up first on the county assessor in 2004. So it doesn't appear that they were approved when they were put in. It looks like it was to correct sagging of that beam across the porch there. So one thing to point out is if they were there, one point in the staff report was that they didn't feel that that wall could bear any weight. I would argue that those wrought iron piers were there since 2004, so they're up. They wouldn't cause any integrity issues with that wall. I don't think it's not bearing the whole weight of that beam. It was just to correct some cosmetic sagging based off my assessment. So at this point, I'm kind of in a predicament. Do I go back with the wrought iron? Do I remove those? Or is it okay to get approval to keep these? So I'm a little concerned if I remove them that I might have to deal with that beam that goes across between the two brick columns there. And it could cause potential damage to the face of it, and it could be extensive work to repair it. Don't know that for sure, but based off, if I have to go that direction to take it to where there's nothing there, that would probably be the way that you would have to repair it. And the staff report kind of points that out as well.
Is there a beam that I can't tell in the last photograph that goes from those large brick columns at the carport where Portage shared to the porch? Is there a beam?
There is something, there is a beam, but I don't know if it's tying in and supporting.
Is it a continuation of the one with the porch?
No, it's not a continuation of the porch one.
Okay.
Is it your belief that originally there were not columns?
Yes, that's the way it appears. In the staff report, you can actually see a picture without any columns there or any supports. Right. So I don't know if that's in this report here.
I missed it.
So I could open it up and see what happens, but I would have a little bit of concern doing that. And then if I do take these supports out, I would have to deal with that beam. So kind of the options I feel like I have right now, I know I kind of went the wrong direction with this. I can put the wrought iron ones back up. We could leave these ones, or I have a new project to try and figure out how to span that front porch across those brick columns.
Speak for the rest of the commissioners, but we would probably prefer they would be restored to the original design.
Well, and it's not unheard of in the past where there's a long span porch like this, that if there's, sometimes there's evidence of there maybe used to be a post that's been removed, or maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but there's something, some sort of substantial thing that post sits on.
Right.
In this case, there's not really that. It's just the wall, which kind of leads me to believe that there really was never anything there, so it's kind of hard to justify putting something there.
Plus the photograph.
Right. We've got a photograph where there was nothing there.
Right.
So
one thing to point out, I've owned the property since February of this year, so I didn't have anything to do with the original wrought iron put up.
Right.
Yeah.
So is it possible for me to put the wrought iron back up to hold the porch up, or am I in danger now because I've opened this whole thing up?
Is there some kind of temporary situation that can be
I would point out one other thing is directly across the street, there are straight column supports like this on a porch. They're not of the same scale, though. But I feel like the straight support like that is honest to the bungalow look of the home.
It's more what the original construction was than whether it looks good or not, really.
To the question about a temporary, we have had projects before where someone was doing some sort of structural repairs to a porch and they've put up temporary supports. We try not to give an actual CA for temporary supports because it's hard to enforce that they go away, and how do you define what's temporary. And but we've worked with people on kind of their documentation for their CA to say the porch is being rebuilt, this is how we're going to hold it up while we rebuild it. But to just say for an undefined period of time we're going to do this to support the structure, we don't typically do that.
Yeah, I'm looking for a long-term directive here.
I would think we'd encourage to rebuild the beam.
Yeah, I agree with staff's recommendation.
Anybody else? The motion?
So if that's the case, then a continuance is probably the appropriate path for at least a couple of months to get you down the road to assess, what the nature of the beam is, what the repair might be to actually fix the beam so it can span the distance without the posts.
I guess, do I have to come back and get approval to repair that, or what is involved in that? I can do that on my own and piece back the facing as it is today, right?
Repair and maintenance.
So we would continue this item today to either the July 6th or the August 3rd meeting. If in the interim you come up with a plan for repair to the porch, removal of the columns that have been installed, it may be something that we can administratively approve, or it may be something that is under the category of ordinary maintenance and repair.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe we want to do August 3rd, just to give them the
Right,
longest
right,
amount of time.
Okay, so
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
I'd make a motion to continue HBCA 16-00039 to the August 3rd meeting.
Second.
It's a tie. Moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Ann Zackritz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item is continued. Thank you.
HPCA 16-00078 at 2212 Northwest 26th Street, Shepherd, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application of Diana Harding for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace front porch columns required, 2, replace siding at house required, 3, install light fixtures at house elective, 4, replace siding at garage required, 5, remove doors at front of garage required, 6, install double overhead garage door required, 7, install light fixtures at garage doors elective, and 8, replace siding at gable with stucco and faux timbers elective.
Oh, you must be Diana.
Yes,
Go ahead and state your whole name, sorry.
I'm sorry, I can't hear
Could you go ahead and state your whole name?
you. Diana Harding.
Okay. You're from Dallas.
Yes.
All right. I don't know where we start on this. Can you tell us what the history of the project, what you've been doing?
Well, I bought this property as a flip, and there had been a lot of really bad repairs done to it. There was no less than 8 different types of material on the house, of at least 8 different types of sizes, 4, 6, 8 odd sizes, 2-inch trim. It was all over the place, and we proceeded to put it back together. The back had been started by the previous owner, apparently, because there were already new windows and some siding on the back. And I proceeded to make all kinds of changes, and somebody showed up and said, "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" And I'm like, "Oh." So anyway, here to get approval for as much as I can, so we can move forward with this project that's been kind of in limbo for the past month. I did put in all new windows, and believe me, I would not have spent money on new windows had I known I couldn't use them. So I took all those back out and put in most of the old ones. I'm still having to have some made, but they were all not able to be reused. So I've already done that part, and just like to see what you guys have to say.
How long have you owned the house?
I'm sorry?
How long have you owned the house? Excuse me.
Since March 1st. It was around the
This year?
March, the first week, well, back like the 5th or the 6th, or, yeah. Of this
Okay.
year, yes.
It states in the report, I think, that there was evidence of the original siding, which, I mean, when I'm going to say siding, it's, the wood is just really limited, on the house only, to the soffit or the fascia boards, correct?
I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard time. I wear hearing aids, I'm deaf, so I wear two.
Okay, we'll speak up.
It's really hard for me to.
We'll speak up.
Was there evidence of the original trim, the wood trim for the house? Somewhere, because I know, I've read there was many different types.
Right.
But it stated that there was at least one place.
Well, it was on the east end of the porch. If you're walking up the stairs, there's a part, that part appeared to be original, and then there was a part on the back west side that appeared to be original. And then there was a part on the back west addition that was built in 1960 there's like 3 boards in the middle of, and those were original to that addition, but everything else had been covered up.
I mean, it would be my thought that the siding on the house would need to be wood to match the original.
Okay. Well, siding is a...
I mean, we're saying siding, but it's really the
Okay, I was calling it trim, and then she was
trim.
in notes as fascia, so that's...
Trim or fascia.
Are you talking about the big boards that go around the
Yes.
edge? Okay, so
Yes.
what are we calling that? Is that fascia, or is that trim, or is that siding, or is... That's what I'm not sure.
Well, it says replace siding, so I'm going
Well,
with
but
that.
the back of the house already had siding.
Okay.
The addition already had siding on it.
Okay.
And the gabled ends
Well, let's just talk about the fascia
Okay.
The
So we're
straight
talking about
boards.
the trim on the house is fascia?
The wood that's...
Okay, all
Yes.
right. I just wanted to make sure we were talking about this.
Uh-huh. I guess my thought is that after I read it, there was evidence of the original wood, and so I would recommend that all of that be wood.
There was evidence, is that?
That's what I gathered from the information you submitted said that there was evidence of wood.
In a few places, yes.
Right.
The rest of it had been covered up with like the cardboard. I don't know whether it's
Right.
laminate or what it's called, but it's the thing that absorbs water that
Right.
cuts away. Yeah, that was covered on a lot of it.
So it was covering more real wood, or the real wood had been removed and covered with something else?
I don't know 100%.
Anyway, I mean, it would be my thought that all of that fascia trim needs to be real wood, the same size as the original that you found.
Okay.
That would be the siding. That was the most confusing part. That's why I'm starting with that.
Yeah, I understand, because there was vinyl siding and...
Okay, so you...
It's masonite. Masonite
Right.
was what was there.
So you said there's siding on the addition. Did you...
There was
remove-
siding on the addition when I bought the house.
Uh-huh. Did you take that off?
Parts of it.
Did you...
On the east side.
Did you replace it with the same siding, type of siding?
It had 12-inch, because originally when the addition was built, it had a flat top roof. So up to that, it had the masonite siding that's the fiberboard. And then above that, when they added the gable roof, that was the 1x12 with the design in it that they had put on. And the back part had siding, and we matched the 1x8s that were already on the back to the east side. Yeah, that side. At the upper top, you can see there was 2-inch boards across the top, but I just found a picture this morning. We were looking for where the vent were supposed to go, and I was looking, and I found a picture that had 1x12 siding about the top third of that. Below that, it had the masonite.
So now is it the same siding on all?
Now it's the same siding. This is the same siding that's on the lower part of the back, but on the gable end, it still has the 1x12s that were already there, right there. See, the upper top was the 12.
Okay, generally, if there needs to be repairs, it either has to be the same or a change has to be approved. What are you asking for?
On this part, I'm asking to just leave it the way that it is now, because the 1x8 siding's already there, and the 1x12s are already there, and they're also you can see them on the west side as well. And we didn't repair any of that.
Okay.
But the 12s, I mean, the 1x8s were already on the back of the house, on the lower portion.
Mm-hmm. So you matched those?
Right, we matched it on the east side.
And then on the west side, what happened on the west side? Is there a west side?
There's not a west side. It's this
Just the
hideous
east side.
stone structure that was put up that's pink.
Okay. And so,
It was very
so what
poorly-
material, just to confirm, what
Well,
material?
it was kind of black, but we power washed it off or cleaned it off, got off the black soot off of it, and it's not as offensive as it was.
So now what is the material, the 8 inches? Is the 8-inch hardy plank?
Yes. Yes. And if you can see in this particular photo, on the very right-hand column, right-hand side, you can see the front of the garage. You can see the cedar post that faces the driveway. You see that? Right in the very corner? How it's right there, yeah. See how it's really wide at the very top, and then at the very bottom, there's no reveal at the bottom? The garage was slanting so much that we kind of corrected it to make it look straight, and gave it another life of another 91 years, hopefully.
Okay. I have a question on the one thing, the one thing staff approved. The front porch columns.
Oh.
Can you just what material are those?
It's cedar.
Cedar.
It's cedar. What was there before was a wrought iron railing, and I found evidence of a 6-inch post, because it didn't match the house. So I was trying to figure out what we should use, and I found this square right below the left post that was 6 inches. And so we put those up there, and we thought, this looks like it belongs here. So that's kind of how I gathered it came at that.
Okay. We have approved cedar before. I'm not all for it because we have approved cedar before. Personally, I'm not for it. I don't think it is a material that is compatible with historic houses, but I understand that.
Well, one of the issues that I had is that the opening from the wrought iron was like 30 inches, so you couldn't even get up on the porch with anything. So anybody that had moved in and out of the house apparently had taken off that railing in the center, so it was really rickety anyway, because there was no way to get furniture into the house, because the side door is 32 inches and the back door was 32 inches. So you need a 36-inch opening door to get even, stove it.
Do you have evidence that the wrought iron was not original?
Well, that post, the footprint of the post is pretty strong to me, which I sent along. It's in there. Yeah, and I zoomed in on it, and actually the zoom in doesn't show you as much as the regular picture on my phone, but it's very clear if you were to look at physically look at the property. It's a lot more obvious in person than it is in the pictures. I had a hard time getting a really good picture with my phone.
Could you just briefly describe the difference of what the gables look like with that before you did the stucco and the faux timbers?
It was the east side had lap siding that I didn't believe was original to the house.
Do you know what kind of siding?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what kind of siding? Was it aluminum?
It was wood, some kind of wood.
So it was wood.
It was wood siding, but I didn't believe it was original to the house, and I thought it didn't look right. And when they tore it off, because a lot of it had rotted out anyway, so when they took it out, they found where the other vertical boards used to be, and he also found mesh around the outside on the underneath. So that told me that eventually it was stuck. It matched the other side. And the corbels, I chose the round ones because it matched. Half of the houses in that entire neighborhood have a rounded front porch. And it made more sense to me than just sticking up a 2x4 that looks like no one put any effort to it at all, just to throw it up, take a scrap piece off the ground and stick it up there. It didn't really look very good.
I mean, I don't think that particular cedar plus a cedar decorative piece is typical of these houses, even though, anyway, I don't think it's typical. I think what would have been there was probably a square, we don't know. I would say it was more likely it was a square wood post made out of 1x4s or something with a little crown at the top and the bottom to finish it off. So I don't think that that's really appropriate for this style of house. I'm not saying it doesn't look, we'll go with that. Sometimes things look better to us, but in this case, I don't think it's appropriate.
So even with the footprint on the cement that you can see, that was exactly...
I get where you're going on that. I just don't think cedar, a solid cedar post is not typical of historic material or material that was used for posts in the neighborhood. If you look at the posts in the neighborhood, they're all going to be separate pieces of wood nailed together with a little trim piece at the bottom and the top and painted.
Well, that may be, but I counted a dozen houses just walking around one day that have actual cedar posts right now, at least. They're very common over there. And, I looked around the neighborhood going, what do other people use? And that's kind of how I ended up with the cedar post, because they're very common over there.
Anyway, that's my thought. So on the house, I would say that I disagree with the column design that you chose and think that it should be with the indication on the floor that it's a 6x6. It could be a wood column. I'm not really sure about the wrought iron unless you have photographs of what was there, if that was original or not, because there is a lot of wrought iron in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree
So-
there is, but none that, like what was on this house.
The siding that we're referring to, at least just limited to the fascia, I think that there was evidence of the wood, and it should have been repaired with wood to match. Let's see, is that all on the, and the gable, I mean, I would like to see a photograph. Did you photograph the?
I didn't have any reason to document.
Right.
I was able to get photos off of the county because I didn't have any reason to take close-up pictures of stuff. So I don't have, I mean, the one picture I found of the east side of the addition I just found this morning because we were looking for where the vent went, and I happened to come across that one showing that there was already siding there. But I was more focused on the interior and the paint color, frankly. It was really tough to figure out what to put on this house.
So, I mean, I guess on that one, if did you see it or the contractor told you, or?
On which question?
On the gable, the evidence of the faux timbers?
I'm sorry?
Did you see the evidence that there was the timbers under the siding in the gable, or was that just related to you by the contractor?
He related it to me. He told me what it was, and
okay.
I don't think there were faux timbers there before. I think he put it up to match the fascia because it has so much old paint on it. I think that was his thought in matching the texture. So that's what I was saying. I would, I understand that you want that changed to wood on the front, any of the trim that I've done on the front.
Any other, kind of stuck on this one. Any other comments on just the fascia, the material that was used around the house, excluding the addition?
I agree with you, Joe, that the siding that was removed should have been replaced with wood siding because there's evidence that it was there. And the faux timbers, we don't really, that's not a historic material, and we don't
Even though it's used in all over the
essentially
neighborhood?
approve. I don't know what that means.
Well, I mean, we look to the house. That's the problem, is that we don't really, sometimes when we're trying to replace something that's been missing, like, you had wrought iron columns and you want to put wood, then we look to the neighborhood perhaps if there's not evidence. But when there's no evidence that something was there, we don't look to other houses as to what we could add to that house. It'd be plain.
So
I'm sorry, what?
Right, there was faux timbering in one of the gables.
Okay.
Previously.
Right, that's fine.
I'm sorry, what?
Anything that was there is fine, so one gable with the faux timber is fine.
The larger gable.
The larger one.
On the right.
The other one, I would suggest just to leave plain since we don't have any evidence.
But the evidence, was it just that your contractor told you he found it?
Uh-huh.
So we don't really have any evidence.
Well, he didn't take a picture of it. He just told me that that's what he saw. And he would not have any reason to lie to me.
Right. I mean, I'm not, if that's the one, I'm sorry, it was just a little confusing. If the big one was there, and then the other one your contractor told you, then if he followed that design,
right, then
that's fine.
Okay, thank you. But the siding on the back of the house is not visible to anyone.
Well, we're just talking about the wood siding on the fascia of the original house.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay.
So, any other comments on the columns?
On the columns, I have a comment or a question, I guess, because the staff report says that it's compatible with the block, and you're saying that it's not, so I just want how to resolve that.
I know. It's just my opinion. I don't, we've looked at cedar over time, but when I read the guidelines, I don't think that solid cedar columns are a historic material. That's my opposition to that. I'm not totally opposed to leaving these, but I don't think it's a correct. It's not a when we have the material. If we didn't have the material, I mean, that's one thing, but we have the material to make wood columns. That's just my thought on it. Katie and I will agree to disagree.
Well, and I think staff felt that we felt comfortable with the wrought iron not being historic, and while this likely is not what the historic column was, we didn't feel like it was significantly detracting from the character of the property in the district, to the same extent that like when someone comes in and puts a big chunky papered Craftsman column on a house where it would never have been on that house. But I do agree, as we've looked at older porch columns that exist in Shepherd, they do tend to be 1x4s that have been nailed together into a thicker post than that, and that type of construction instead of a solid post. But we felt like it was simple enough, and we understood the case that the applicant made for the arch. So,
Thank you.
Can we start on something? Approving or?
I try to make a motion for the house at least.
But we have 8 items.
Well, I was going to just do the house and then the garage.
Oh, start there, okay.
Make a motion to approve item 1. Well, I better just go one at a time. I'll do it really quick. I'll make a motion to approve item 1, replace the front porch columns. With the staff report findings.
Okay.
Including that unique circumstance?
I'm sorry?
Including the unique circumstance they listed? The original
I'm sorry.
columns?
Including, let's see, item 1.
Specific
findings, she doesn't have,
and unique circumstances.
oh, it's not an order.
Actually, under staff recommendations, item number 2 is item number 1.
Oh, okay, that's my confusion. Okay.
She's trying to confuse it.
I know it. Item number 2, replace the porch columns with the unique circumstances as stated in the staff report.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Joe Meacham, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Make a motion to, oh, I'm sorry.
Item 1 is approved. Item 2.
Okay. I don't know on this one. Number 4. Okay.
Item 2 is paragraph 4.
Okay. I make a motion to approve replacing the siding at the house with the unique circumstances and conditions cited by the staff, except for with the condition that the fascia, that all the wood, including the fascia on the original portion of the house, be replaced with wood to match the original wood that was found during the renovation. And that the siding on the addition to be approved. Does that make sense?
Ms. Harding, are you clear on that condition?
She's saying that I could have left what was there and been okay, but since I removed it, you want me to go back and fix it all again with real wood?
Yes.
But then I can leave the siding that was already there when I bought the house and the siding that I put on?
On the addition.
On the addition?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you agree to that condition?
I don't think I have any choice. I wouldn't agree
You
to it.
always have a choice.
I wouldn't agree to it just because I've just gone to a huge amount of expense, and so I just don't feel like I have any choice but to agree to it.
Okay, then I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meacham, second by Neela Crane Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 2 is
Okay,
approved with what, conditions?
condition that the fascia be replaced with real wood to match the original.
Unique circumstances and conditions. Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to do number 8, and make a motion to approve item 8 with the specific finding, unique circumstances as stated by staff.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Joe Meacham, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 8 has been approved. You're doing good.
I have a question about the light fixtures. Were they located where light fixtures were, or were they added?
On which,
We'll just start with the house.
I'm sorry?
Were the light fixtures on the house, are they the new ones in the same location as the old
The
ones?
ones on the porch is exactly where the other one was. On the side one, there wasn't a light. There was no light on the side. And if we put it on the face, I was afraid it would hit you. You couldn't get up the stairs. It would hit you in the face. So,
Same neighborhood, we denied somebody putting a light between the front of the house and the side door.
well, we have to by code. It has all new electrical, and by code, they require that we put a light by the door.
I think that one, I think we actually either denied or continued that one if it's the same one that you're thinking of, because it was in a very odd place on the wall, and we asked them to put it closer to the door in a place that made sense, the way you would typically have a light by a back door.
Okay. Okay.
There's also columns on this side. That's why it's sagging so much. There was also columns the day that Angela came out. They had taken the columns off, or the corbels, which matched the ones on the front porch. Just to be clear, there were 2 on the side to hold the porch up.
What was there originally?
I don't know what there was originally, but there was a...
I mean, when you got it?
2 befores that had clearly been added at some point. They weren't original for sure. Stuck kind of at an awkward angle. They weren't really supporting it, but...
So since they came out to do the photographs, you've added...
They were already there, but they took them down to paint them.
Oh.
So when she happened to come out there, had been removed, but they are there again.
But they weren't on your application.
I'm sorry?
They weren't on
Corbels for the side porch and for the front. Okay, well, I thought that they were, so. Because we need to put something there because it's sagging. I mean, there has to be something.
That's not something that was included in the description, so it's not something the commission can take action on. It's something we can add to your application and possibly address administratively.
Okay.
But Angela and I will work
Okay.
with you on that after the
All
meeting.
right, thank you.
Okay, on to
I think they were laying on behind the house.
the siding on the garage. What was there when you purchased the property?
There was vertical siding and horizontal siding on the west side.
Was any of it, did any of it appear to be the original siding?
Yes, I think that it was. I think it was on the east side. Yeah, on the neighbor side, I believe that it was. But they had put, they'd patched it with a lot of different types of things, and it made sense to match what was on the house.
On the addition?
On the addition. And it does set back on the lot, and you can only see half of the front of the garage from the street.
I mean, generally, we allow different siding when it's a new garage, but when it's a historic garage, we're kind of back to, if there's original material, we approve more original material, or material to match the original.
Well, I would prefer to leave the siding on there because it looks 10,000 times better, and it's also made the garage a lot sturdier as well.
And so is the same
I mean, you
siding
can see the
on...
garage, you can see the garage in the background, that's the neighbors. Right. The same material.
Is the siding the same on all four sides?
Yes. Now it is.
Joe, do you mean the same dimension?
Well, I mean, if they're, I would assume, I mean, we don't do this very often because we're usually demolishing garages and doing new garages, but it would seem like that if you had one whole wall of the original material, whatever condition it is in, if you wanted to improve its condition, you could remove that material and replace it with the same material, but I would expect that then that material would be used on all four sides if you have evidence of the original material. Or, you know, you could have, I mean, that's my thought.
Well, I think since it sits back on the lot.
But
and
location really doesn't have anything to do with it. It's,
Okay.
the guidelines are referring to the amount of original material that's existing when you start your renovation. So once you have that original material, sometimes it makes life more difficult versus if somebody in the past has taken that all off and done something completely different. So,
Well, the only thing that I have a picture of is the front of it, which Angie just gave me, which this had been a very poor repair, and this section was actually sticking out past the roof line. It's hard to see it in the photo, because if you sit on the side of the garage, it kind of went like this. So I would respectfully request that we leave the garage how it is.
I'm looking for staff's recommendation on.
Recommend continuing. Get more information.
What, siding on the garage, number 4.
It's paragraph 5 on page 17.
Staff recommends continuance. A continuance
Usually
on that
means
item.
they want us to tell you to
Yeah.
replace it with the original material. I mean, I don't really,
I think according to several guidelines in the maintenance section, 3.1, .4, .14, .15, .16, I think it's clear to me that replacement and repairs shall be done with like material. And the historic siding was a 3-inch exposure. You've gone back with an 8-inch hardy plank. That's not like material. So based on the guidelines and the information we have, I could not approve the replacement siding. Any other thoughts?
It matches what's on the house, so it look.
but that's an addition.
Right.
That's an addition that's not original. We're not really sure what they started out with on that, but we know what they started out with on the garage.
We can also continue that item, and replacement back to the wood siding would be an administrative approval item. If we continue that to a future meeting, and then that could be worked out with staff after this meeting. But staff would not be able to approve the replacement of siding on the historic garage with a material other than the historic fabric.
Okay. I'll make a motion eventually on the garage, but I'm on the doors. Katie, what is staff's? I guess I'm not. And what are we wanting to have instead of what there is? Let's see here. Replace.
I will let Angela correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was one where we were maybe looking for some additional information, but in general, the guidelines encourage 2 single garage doors, not 1 double-width garage door, although in the past with garages in the location that this one is, we've sometimes approved that alteration. We also have approved metal garage doors in this district and at that location.
What is the size of the garage?
18 wide by 24 to 32 deep. I can't really remember. It's 30.
So the width is 18.
The width is 18, and the opening for the double door was already there.
There
It
it
would
is.
be difficult. And
That's my point.
And there's, again, there's double-car garages that look just like that all over the neighborhood.
Well, we've approved single doors, wide doors, if the width of the garage isn't enough to allow for 2 single doors. That's what we're getting at here, I think. So,
I would make a motion to...
It's not even functional if you put 2 doors in.
yeah,
I'm in
we're agreeing
agreement.
with you here.
I'm sorry, I can't.
We're agreeing with you.
agreeing with-
With the echoing, it's just hard for me to hear.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
understand. We're agreeing with you.
Okay.
I mean, I would make a motion to continue so that you can have the opportunity to work with staff on the siding. Everything else can be approved
Continue what?
by staff. Continue the items related to the garage.
All of them?
But I think they can all still be approved by staff. The only one I'm,
Staff can't approve the garage door stuff.
No,
5 and 6.
oh, okay.
Sorry.
Why don't you take them separately?
Okay. Is removing the doors, is that the garage doors? Number 5?
Yes, there was a pedestrian door at the front.
Oh, okay. Well, I'd make a motion to, where is it? Siding. I'd make a motion to continue item 4
Okay.
to the August 3rd meeting.
Well, I'm not going to be in town August 3rd, and I thought Katie said that we could do it.
If you change to the historic material, you all can communicate on that. If you,
Right, staff can do that at any point in the interim. So that just gives you a larger window of time to work with staff and get it approved. And then when that August 3rd date comes up, you'll be all done. You won't have to come back for
you
that
won't have to
meeting.
come back.
Okay, been moved by Joe Meacham. Is there a second?
Well, I don't want to replace the siding on the garage. I would like to do, we need to discuss this further or whatever I have to do. I don't have the money to do all this.
You want a
I'm at the
decision?
end of my rope, and particularly when there are other garages in the neighborhood, and you can see it in this photo, when only half of the front of the garage you can see, only one section from the street. And particularly in light of the other expense that I've been on in this house, I don't think it's an unreasonable request.
I think the consensus, we hear your story. I think the consensus is that it is not an appropriate material as a replacement. Katie's idea to give you a continuance, or Mary Jo's, to give you time to discuss that more with staff and maybe go back with the original material. Staff could approve that, but I'm kind of getting that we would end up having to deny this, possibly, because that is what we feel the guidelines point towards, replacing with the original. And we
On a
can't
structure that
make...
sits behind the house that you
Yes,
cannot
ma'am.
see from the street
Yes, ma'am.
except for the one section.
Yes, ma'am. We cannot make a unique circumstance because the work has already been done. That's the unfortunate thing in this case. I understand you've put a lot of time and money into this, but we have to look at your application as if nothing has started. So if we don't continue that item, I think it's possible that we might have to deny that item. If you're saying you're just going to stay with the siding that you've replaced.
I see.
And if we do that, you still have the opportunity to go to the Board of Adjustment and request them to review it, so.
So we can continue that item today to give you some time to think about it, leave the meeting, kind of talk with staff again, maybe kind of just relax a little, which I might recommend that we do that versus deny it, because that's the end of the line. We deny it.
All right.
So what are your thoughts? Would you be okay with the continuance
Yes.
of that item? Okay. Mary Jo, did you start that?
Make a motion to continue item 4 to the August 3rd meeting.
Second, unless someone else already did.
Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Neela Crank Clement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 4 is continued.
And then,
Garage door?
yeah, did we, on the first one, did we get the light fixtures for the house?
No.
Nope. Okay, so I would make a motion to approve item 3, the light fixture for the house, with the findings. Was there anything specific on that? Katie? Okay, with item 3, with the findings, staff findings. Item 5, remove, I guess, the existing garage door and the pedestrian door from the front. Item 6, install a double overhead garage door. Specific findings by staff, and install the light fixtures at the garage door.
Well, actually, items 5 and 6, staff had recommended continuance, so they don't have specific findings for items 5 and 6.
I think 3 and 7, you could do 3 and 7.
Yeah, do 3 and 7.
Okay.
And then we'll go back and catch
Oh,
the 5
okay.
and 6. Yeah.
To approve the light fixtures for the house site with staff findings.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Joe Meacham and seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items 3 and 7 have been approved.
5 and 6, we kind of talked about that, maybe that's probably okay.
The doors?
So, but we would need to, right, the doors, but we would need to craft some language to make that work.
Okay, so it was continue item 5. So to approve item 5, to approve item 5 with the specific findings that the 18-foot width of the garage would indicate the need for a single door.
I'll second that.
Should there also be a finding that it's or maybe it's in the staff report, there's so many here, that it is at the back of the lot and not only partially visible from the right-of-way? Should that be added, do you think?
That's one of the specific findings. But staff is recommending continuing.
Okay, so that would be my second finding, I guess, that it's 18 feet and that the garage is minimally visible.
Was that for 5 and 6?
That's under findings.
Yes, that was items 5 and 6.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
5 and 6.
Did you second that?
I will second that.
Okay, moved by Joe Meacham and seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items 5 and 6 are approved with specific findings and unique circumstance. And
So I've been checking off, I think that was all the items. So the only one that's continued is the siding on the garage. So staff will work with you and see if we can get something figured out on that.
Thank you. Okay, next case.
HPCA 16-00079 at 545 Northwest 38th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Eric and Aaron Renegar by Brian Beavers for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct rear addition at first floor of structure, elective, 2, construct rear addition at second floor of structure, elective. Then 3, construct side addition at second floor of structure above attached garage, elective. And just to clarify, I split these 3 up because there are sort of different guidelines for additions in different locations with different levels of visibility. So we thought there might be portions that move forward at different paces. So that's why there's 3.
Okay. Well, welcome. You must be the owner.
I am, Erin Renner.
Okay. You sign in? Okay. We have comments, questions?
Did you have any comments in regards to the staff report?
Yes, just in reviewing the report, it appeared as though the main concern was the addition of 971 square feet, which would be over the 750 that is allowed. And I just wanted to point out that really when you're looking at Crown Heights, I think it's important to keep streets in mind. I know 750 square feet added on to a house at 42nd Street would be substantial. This house is on 38th Street. It does have a lot of larger homes on the street already. There's the DeLisi Mansion, which is on the west side of the street. Even with approving the total square footage that we are wanting to add of 971, there would still be 4 houses on our street just between Chartel and Walker that would be larger in square footage, including the house directly to our east. The addition above the garage that we're proposing has essentially been done by a house that's 5 houses to our west. I do have pictures of that. I don't know if that's appropriate, if anyone would want to see it, but it would mirror that house and be very consistent with the other houses on our street.
Comments? Thank you. Anybody?
I mean, I'm in agreement with staff's findings that it exceeds the square footage, that it would look too much like the original house, that it's visible from the public right-of-way. I mean, all of those.
Especially the portion over the garage. I mean, that is right on the street.
I mean, it's a
and definite
character-defining
Right.
change.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Even though I know, I'm familiar with that street, I know that there's bigger houses and they've done that before, but it doesn't seem to, I mean, the design does not, it does not look like that the guidelines were tried, that the design follows the guidelines.
I don't know if it would be appropriate, but I did print out the picture of the house where they've done the same remodel
Right.
of the garage, the same setback, it's the same shutters, same brick color.
Right.
I don't know if you can consider that, but I have brought pictures of that that would essentially mirror what we're wanting to do to our house.
I mean, we have a guideline for 750 square feet, so I understand what you're saying, but what would the...
What?
There's not an exception there, or we have not been making exceptions. But I think the biggest is the change to the front of the house.
We're new to this process. We want
Right.
to stay on the street. Sure.
Right.
You know,
That's why we provide, I mean, when you're doing an addition, it's best to use the guidelines for the design, because this is what happens, is that it says in the guidelines that you can only go up to 750, and then we have to go by that.
And I do understand that. Again, I just think that looking at the policy behind the guidelines, to add 750 square feet to a house that's, 2,200 square feet is much different than adding it to the houses that are on this street. I don't know if it's possible to redraft our plans and use it as storage space or some other, I'm just trying to think of ideas. Obviously, we've been on the street for 5 years. We know the neighbors. We love the area. We'd love to stay on the street. I think what we're proposing would be consistent with the other houses on the street, but I'm open for suggestions if anyone has any.
To explain the process a little, the commission, as you've seen watching previous, the commission is able to continue it to either July 6th or August 3rd, which would give you time to work with your architect to see if there are things about the design that you can address. I talked with the applicant's representative, the designer, as they were submitting, and you know, he was aware that particularly the portion of the addition over the garage could be a challenge. I know that's something that was done historically. We have historic structures that have space, you know, living space that was added above the garage, but just because it exists on another structure doesn't necessarily mean it's appropriate to this structure. So that's one of the things that the commission typically considers. On the size of the addition, the intent is that it's that 750 limit or 50% of the footprint of the house, because we're trying to be respectful of the size of your house. So even if there are larger houses around your house, that doesn't necessarily justify an addition. It's about the relationship between your house and the addition to your house. But those are all things that you could potentially revise, or that you could, you know, do additional research to try and justify making a case for special exceptions.
If we were to resubmit for the July board, obviously we want to try to utilize the summer months for building and try to get this going as quickly as we can. Would the other proposed additions be approved minus the garage addition? Is there a way to address that now so that we can have some idea when we resubmit as to what we need to focus on?
Is that why you separated it?
I did separate them with the intent that if the commission was comfortable approving one or more portions of it, they could. I think we'd raised issues about the second story addition at the rear, as well as the addition over the garage. But any or all of them could move forward independent of the others.
But if you just were looking at not the garage, does the total square footage?
The north addition, how many square feet is that?
The lower level adds 200 square feet to the existing footprint, and I believe the upper addition was 400.
428?
Yeah.
So is that below the 750?
So sorry, I'm trying to...
138 plus the 428, is that the rear addition?
Are you saying that the addition at the lower level, first floor addition, to the garage plus the north?
No, this would be...
I guess I'm confused. What?
Would this would be extending the kitchen, and then the...
If you look at page 3 of the staff report, the addition on the first floor is 138 square feet.
Yes.
The second addition above the existing first floor addition is 428 square feet. And then the portion over the garage is 350. So the total is 916. So yes, if you took that 350 from the 916, then you'd be under the 750 limit.
I think it's 611 if my math's right.
Okay, so...
I think that, to me, if I'm reading the drawings right, that resolves the issues.
Well...
Does it not? Because now that all the work is behind the house?
But the roof, well, the one thing is the roof line of the garage would have to be altered to accommodate the garage expansion somehow.
Oh.
The
new second floor would cover all of it. See what I mean?
I see.
Right. I think if the if all of it was approved minus the garage addition, there's still going to have to be some changes to the drawings that have been submitted. And then we also, staff also raised some concerns about the proposal includes removing the wood siding that's in the gable ends on the historic portion of the house, and then just the kind of configuration and alignment of windows on the side of the house opposite the garage. And I'm forgetting which is north and south and east and west. But
the south.
Those windows didn't bother me too much, personally, but why? Yeah, on the east elevation. There was only two. It was just a little, we talked about that, just those two. I had a question about the drawings seem to indicate that you're removing the entry, what's that called? Surround? Are you closing that?
On your front door of the house. On the front door of the house, you'll see currently there's the broken pillars, the white surround around the front door.
There it is, yeah.
Okay, well, the renderings don't show that, so that was kind of sending off some alarms in our architectural heads.
Your renderings and your elevations don't show it, but probably because it was too hard to draw. Okay, good. You were talking about removing historic features. Was that one of the things you were talking about?
No, so currently the gable ends on the east and the west side of the house have wood siding in them. And
I see.
The application indicates that that wood siding would be removed and brick would be put all the way up.
Okay, I see.
And you're talking about on the east side, the upper
Yep, the upper portion
in the gable
by the roof. Yep.
Okay. There we go. Lap siding. So if we didn't do the second floor expansion over the garage and made some of these changes, would that be acceptable?
Yeah, just so I'm clear, the changes that you would want to see are the siding on the east side, on the upper instead of brick. Is that right?
What's existing?
Well, I was looking and
On the gables.
That's right. Yeah, keeping the wood siding that's currently in the gables place.
I think more important is that the height of the existing garage to remain the same.
The height of the existing.
I mean, the existing garage not to be a two-story. Is that what we're?
To not expand
the
second floor on the.
To not expand the second floor.
Well, we will need to get something submitted to review on the roof line because it will require change.
Yes, I think all components of it would need to be continued because these changes that we're talking about are going to all affect other factors.
I make a motion to continue HPCA 16-00079 to the...
So we can do July 6th, and I was trying to figure out the dates by which we would need your new information. So if we pretended that this meeting was happening on our usual June date, we would want new documentation by June 7th.
then I heard you mention earlier, is this something we could work with a staff member by email, or do we need to come back for the July 6th?
So this would have to come back to the commission.
Okay.
Because it's actually being continued to the meeting.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So I think we need to...
July 6th.
Motion
Continue
and
to
second
July
vote,
6th.
sorry. Yes.
Did you make a motion?
Yes,
Okay.
motion to continue
Is there
to
a
July
second?
6th.
Okay, moved by Joe Meacham and seconded by Ann Zakowitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the item is continued. And next.
Number 6 was already continued under the continuance docket. So our last item, number 7, HPCA 16-00083 at 2137 Northwest 28th Street, Shepherd, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Robert Shepherd by John Ranke for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage and associated paving elective, 2, construct new garage elective, and 3, install paving elective.
All right, is the applicant present? Yes?
Thank you guys for letting me be here today.
Thank you. Would you state your name? And
I am John Reinke, and I'm making the application for Mr. Shepard.
okay. All right. Any comments on this one?
My comments, sir?
Well, the commissioner, would you like to say something?
I'll respond to whatever you guys have to
Okay.
say. So.
Yeah.
Could you just respond to the staff report?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So, what's the best way to go? That just go to the staff recommendation, or like?
Right. I mean, the first one.
It's on page 9.
Right.
Yeah. So, obviously, the first recommendation that looks like you guys are recommending to approve, that's kind of almost without question. It's definitely
So you're okay with that one? Okay.
It's actually not the worst one that I've addressed in that particular neighborhood, though. So, but I'm certain you guys all have plenty of war stories about that. So I think we can move on to number 2, and which is that you guys are recommending to continue the construction of the garage and the adding of the paving. If you are amenable, I'll address the second one first. And actually, if you'll hold that particular picture there, it kind of highlights in part one of the reasons why we want to move the garage back another 10 feet. You see right there at the apex of the existing roof line, and that is the primary power that exists to the house from the power lines in the back on OG&E's right away. It's actually been attached to the apex of that garage. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is moving that garage back to give us greater clearance between where it comes off of the transformer and feeds the house. We also are planning on relocating the weatherhead on the back of the house to a different location to give us a little bit more clearance. So the setback, just for reference, was just recently approved at the next door neighbor's house, which I happen to be the contractor on that one. So the 10-foot seemed like a reasonable thing, although I do appreciate the comments that were given in the review. So those two things being said, it's obviously my opinion that it should be approved. But I invite the council's comments on that.
Okay.
Katie, I was a little unsure of why that was an issue.
I don't think we actually had a huge problem with the garage itself moving back. I think we have to look back at exactly what we said about that.
I just said that it was recommended to continue.
It said the difference of 10 feet setback may not be considered a great deviation from the original setback. It's possible that new construction in the block may have previously deviated. Guidelines utilize should rather than shall in reference to setbacks. I think fairly frequently that we've approved garages shifting on the site for a variety of reasons. I think staff's larger concern and the recommendation for continuance related to the design of the garage. We have the historic garage here in front of us. We know what it looked like, and the proposed new design did not seem to be very similar to the existing garage.
Yeah,
I'm in agreement. It seems like in this neighborhood, most of the garages are simple.
Yeah, the historic garage is, you can see one that's actually in the background over there, and that very small, low roof things, which is kind of curious, if you think about the way that the homes themselves are designed with high pitches and everything else, which when we were putting together the roof line for this particular one, we tried to be sensitive to the way the actual house was designed and not the secondary structure. And it obviously became apparent through the history of the neighborhood that these garages weren't large enough. The structure you can see in the view that you have on the screen right now is actually an extension that was put on at some point in, we don't know exactly when, but a good number of the garages in the neighborhood actually have that extension on them. Whether it's just enough for the hood of a car or whether it's actually like a standing room that you see there. So, we're basically, and we know that we are outside of the guidelines for this, but the way that the structure of the guidelines are written, it doesn't really allow for a fully functional two-car garage.
Right.
So that is, something that I understand has been in discussion.
We're pretty well stuck on 450,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we've been
That's
down
what
this
the
road.
guidelines are. I think that's what, and that,
This is a unique circumstance. That's what
right.
it is.
Unless your garage is bigger than that, and you,
No, there's precedent in the neighborhood for larger garages. Obviously, some people have gone ahead and built something outside of the authority of the HP situation.
I think I do, it's,
What is the size of that one?
The size of that existing one,
Yeah.
it's 21 feet.
I think it's 378.
Oh,
Is that right?
is it in here? Missed it.
Yeah. We do have that notated in here. So,
18 by 20.
yeah, it's like 21, I think, to be specific. But 18.4 by 21.3.
Oh.
So.
That's, okay.
I do think there were some larger garages that, before the last change in the guidelines, when the problem for larger garages was occurring, I think there were some larger garages approved prior to the change. So now we're kind of back to the 450.
Right. So, if I may ask, what's our reasoning for staying at 450? Given that most people, when you bring in two modern cars and you open your doors, you're going to smash doors together. So, and we obviously we need a new garage, and we're willing to redesign things, but having something that's functionally able to take. My client's car happens to be a F-250 pickup truck, and his wife drives an SUV as well.
Right.
So putting those...
We just don't take lifestyle into consideration. I mean, I think I'm not saying in some instances we would like to give people bigger garages, but the 450 is actually, I think, a result of the growing size of things and being able to control it. So there was a lot of research done to come to that final number.
The number was calculated looking at the standard size of a parking space, the amount you needed to accommodate a typical standard size vehicle, and to allow some room for your typical garage storage, not an additional living space, but
right.
the lawnmower, that kind of stuff. The commission, that guideline does say that the commission may consider other factors, and those other factors include how big the garage was historically, which doesn't apply in this case
Right.
because it's smaller. It includes the size of surrounding historic garages. It also may include the level of visibility. What the commission has talked about with some past cases is if the front of the garage is the appropriate width and the garage comes no farther forward than other garages with which it aligns and no farther back than other garages, that may be a circumstance where they would allow some additional square footage because it still fits within the range of the garage setbacks. Those are things that we would have to,
Right.
that the applicant would have to document.
And if I understand correctly, in this particular neighborhood, we have several, like 3-car garages with garage apartments and garage apartments that have been attached things. So we have a lot of structures within the neighborhood, although not in this particular block, in which I understand is actually kind of the delimiting, consideration. So, and I guess they don't really have a place to go with that. But space is our primary consideration. So, kind of what I'm hearing is that the guidelines are what the guidelines are, and so saying, shall we not go forward? So what shall I do with our need for a new garage? Is redesign for 450 and...
That'd be preference.
Right. So that will definitely... I don't know... His truck, which has been vandalized, I put that into the thing, has been vandalized twice in the past months. So that won't really accommodate him to be able to put both of his vehicles in there. So is there any?
When they vandalized, were they behind the house or on the street?
No, it was vandalized in his driveway.
His driveway behind. If it's behind the house, you're going to have plenty of space back there now.
Yeah, if we move the garage back, we could probably put the truck back there in front of the garage, but behind the.
I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just saying there's alternatives. But as Joe said, we can't base it on the size of their vehicles.
I can understand that.
The same with the design, just going back to that, is that if you have the original garage, then it would probably be our preference to have the new garage be similar in design to the old garage.
Okay. So you want to redesign with a low pitch. So let me ask one more question as far as redesign goes. We've put in here the 6-inch perimeter stem wall underneath the studs, which is going to raise the overall profile. And that's something that I understand the city is definitely preferential to have, at least 6 inches of concrete exposed. That's not the way these things were constructed. Is that going to be okay?
I think modern kind of construction techniques, things that are part of making sure that the building is going to last and going to be maintainable, are things that we can accommodate and that we assume are going to happen with a new structure. It's more about the appearance of it, the look of the roof, the siding material, that sort of thing.
Okay. So, all right, all that being said, where are we at? We're going to recommend for continuance.
Probably continue.
And I think, though, you're kind of lucky that you have till the...
You have till, if we continue to
Yep, till
the
the
July 6th meeting, then we would need your new documentation by June 7th.
Okay. So is there anything that we can do to maybe be in a little bit advance of that? So when's the next meeting?
Well, I can say we can't approve the demolition if the commission was comfortable with that. So at least that portion of it could be
Okay.
approved. But we don't have any way to administratively approve or expedite the design of the garage, the new construction of that.
Okay.
I move to approve for item 1, demolish the garage and associated paving for HPCA 16-00083.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Joe Meacham, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, item 1 is approved.
Where's the added paving is for the additional 10 feet?
Beg your pardon?
Is the added paving for the additional 10 feet
Yes.
going back?
So, yeah, the paving directly in front of the garage as it exists right now is pretty dilapidated and cut up. You can kind of actually make out in the photo that just panned off that ONG actually trenched out the paving and then left it trenched out when they relocated the service. So that was nice of them.
Katie, can we approve the paving, or do we
I would
do
actually
that?
suggest we leave
Leave that for
the
the garage.
added paving in case his site plan changes with the revisions to the
width
design.
of the driveway the driveway would be affected by the garage.
I make a motion to continue items 2 and 3 to the July 6th meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Heather, were you the third there? All right, been moved by Joe Meacham, second. Joe Meacham and seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items 2 and 3 are continued. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now we're on to DII, other business.
Do we want a 5-minute break since we're hitting 4 o'clock?
Okay, it is 4 o'clock. Okay, it's, what time is it? It's 4:09, so we'll reconvene at 4:15. 6-minute break.
So generous.
buzzers.
Okay, we're back in order. It's 4:16. We took an extra 1 minute, 2 minutes. So on to other business. Eddie?
Other business. We have 2 resolutions to initiate proposals to designate 2 of our historic structures as historic landmarks with an HL zoning overlay. In alphabetical order, the first one is the Milk Bottle grocery building at 2426 North Classen Boulevard. This would be an overlay and would be in addition to the zoning that is currently in place for Urban Design Commission. And so this is a 2-step process for the commission when we initiate these. We did one about a year ago, but to refresh your memory, the commission can vote to initiate the process, and then we will come back to you with a more lengthy staff report evaluating the proposed landmarks against the landmark designation criteria that are laid out in the ordinance. And at that time, you would make a recommendation to forward it on to the Planning Commission and to City Council.
Okay. All right. And then also there's a resolution that has to be adopted.
Yes.
Okay. Could you just real briefly tell everybody how many, there's not very many landmarks.
So we have 5 individual landmarks. So this would bring it up to a grand total of 7 structures. And we have, it's been kind of a slow trickle of individual landmarks through the commission's history. We have recently created an ad hoc committee to identify potential landmarks so that we could do this in a more proactive way to expand historic preservation beyond the existing districts and start to recognize individual properties that are historically and architecturally significant, to recognize property owners of these properties that have gone to the lengths and to the trouble of preserving and protecting their buildings and want to see them protected in the long term.
Who initiates that, the application?
So it can be initiated by the property owner, by the commission itself, by the Planning Commission, or by City Council.
Okay.
In both of these cases, we've worked with the property owners to talk with them about the process, and then it was formally initiated, or the initiation was requested by the commission at our previous meeting by the Landmark Committee.
Okay.
Our goal was 50 by
Yes.
when?
50 by 2019.
2019, which would be the
50th anniversary of the commission. And I just saw the actual date that the ordinance was passed today, and I don't remember what it was. It was late in the year, so we have extra time.
So we have extra time. So
to get to that
50.
50.
Okay. Just a little background there. Okay, comments on the item or motion?
Make a motion to initiate, let's see, I make a motion on, we don't have a number for this, do we? We're just initiating? Or 7A? Is that what, okay. Make a motion on 7A to initiate the proposal to designate the Milk Bottle Grocery Building as a historic landmark, directing staff to prepare a report addressing the designation criteria and other considerations, and to also adopt the resolution provided as part of the staff report.
Okay, very good. Okay, it's been moved by Heather Clement and seconded by Neela Crank Clement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is recommended. Next.
Second is the resolution to initiate proposal to designate the Zebra Apartments as an historic landmark. The owner is present. Would you like to make any comments, or not especially? Okay. She's here for other things.
Okay, so I assume this is not a hostile action.
No takeovers.
Any comments or motion?
I make a motion for item 7B, to initiate the proposal to designate the Zebra Grocery and Apartment Hotel as a historic landmark, directing staff to prepare a report addressing the designation criteria and other considerations, and to adopt the resolution provided as part of the staff report.
Second.
Moved by Joe Meacham and seconded by George Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's recommended also. And I have one more question. Could you differentiate between this and National Register? And are these on the National Register also?
Both of these are already listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The National Register is the program that is administered locally by the State Historic Preservation Office and is through the National Park Service, created by the National Historic Preservation Act. So it's a federal program to recognize historic properties, in part for guidance on federal projects and federal impact on historic resources. It does not prevent any work to a National Register listed property by a private entity, including demolition. The only time it does trigger regulation or review of any kind is when there is federal involvement, when it's a federal undertaking. So a property that's on the National Register of Historic Places can be altered, can be demolished without any review at all if it's just private money. This is zoning through the City of Oklahoma City Planning and Zoning Code, part of the municipal code. So this comes with regulations that are part of the zoning, just like our HP districts.
Any changes, modifications, demolition has to come?
Right. It would fall under the same process that our existing landmarks and districts do.
Okay. Just want to clarify that too. All right. On to communications and reports. Katie.
We have two presentations today, actually, which is unusual. The first is a presentation for informational purposes only on previously reviewed application HPCA 16-64 at 614 Northwest 25th Street. This is an application that the commission heard last month to build, the proposal to build a new house in the Paseo Historic District. The application was continued to the July meeting, and in working with the applicant after that initial commission review, staff suggested and the applicant thought it sounded like a good idea if he could, before making a lot of revisions to the proposed design, if he could come and get a little additional feedback on what those revisions might be, and then go forward in preparation for the July 6th meeting. So he's provided some a PowerPoint, and I think we'll walk you through all of that.
We're getting there. Welcome back.
Hi. Glad to be here. David Ramey, 614 Northwest 25th. Before we get going, or before we talk about the presentation, to prepare for this, I watched back the last meeting, which I think is a great tool that the city has.
You must have been really bored.
Well, I just want to make sure I got all, I heard everything correctly. But when I watched it, I want to clarify something that I said. I made a reference to transitional at best for the neighborhood. I think my frustration got the better of me. I want to clarify what I meant by that. What I meant by that isn't that it's transitional at best as a negative tone, that it's a revitalizing neighborhood, and actually it's something that element of it is something my wife and I actually like about it. So watching that back, that definitely came across not the way I intended. So I apologize for how my frustration may have convoluted that.
That's fine.
I want to thank staff for being able to put me on this agenda. I think it'll be very helpful for me. So what I'd like to accomplish today is to present a little bit more data on the Paseo, show you some initial, I haven't done a ton of work, but some initial thoughts that I have, and then hopefully get some feedback from the 5 votes that were against on if I'm going in the right direction, what else you'd like to see, and then also maybe hear from the 3 that voted yes to make sure I'm not going away from why they voted yes to begin with. So hopefully we can get all that done quickly, because I know it's getting late already. So one thing that I noticed when I went back and looked at a lot of my initial material is the sketch that you see on the screen was one of my original concept sketches. And when I started to look at it and compare it to the digital rendering, I noticed that the pitch was actually a lot less when I originally conceived it. So I went back and studied that, and so that if you can click to the next slide. So this one, nope, right there. That's the as proposed, okay? And then I thought, okay, well, let's see if we can lower that roof pitch, because I know that that was an issue for a lot of people. So if you click to the next one, that's with more of like a 9/12 pitch. And I think that still fits with what I'm trying to do. I think it does help it fit into the neighborhood a little bit better. This one still has the stoop. And so if you click to the next one, I studied at not giving a front porch, but maybe we can extend that plinth out and put some kind of vegetation, whether it's flowers, native grasses, there's a whole bunch of potential there. But that also creates a whole lot of space that could be used for seating. So it solves kind of the functional issue that I think was a concern. And it also, I think the comment from the chair was that the front of the house felt austere. And so I think this is kind of a gesture to move closer to the street, help the front of the house greet the street, in kind of a unique way that fits with, is both consistent but also fits with the function and the kind of coldness that I think was an issue. So with that, I'll open it up to any comments that
Have you changed the materials or just the forms? Everything else the same?
Forms, I don't think the materials were a concern as far as I knew.
What was the exterior siding material?
Smooth, hardy board, lap siding.
Okay, lap siding?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'll just note really quickly, what we passed around earlier
Yeah.
was a copy of the staff report from that last meeting. I realized you all didn't have anything to reference regarding what you'd seen before.
Well, I'd like to thank you for looking at this, because I think you addressed some of the comments that we made. And I'll tell you the truth, the sketches look a lot more appealing than the hard line, the more architectural renderings. So
yeah, that was a pretty poor rendering, if I'm being honest. It actually made it feel a lot more austere and cold. That was the medium, not necessarily the design. So
the house to the right, is that pretty accurate as far as the mass? It's a two-story.
Yes and no. The massing is, but it's a craftsman style. I didn't take the time to actually detail it out.
But
there are wide eaves with exposed rafter tails that make it feel a little bit more settled.
But the height and the form, the roof form is kind of like that.
As far as I can tell.
Oh, there. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that was this one.
And I would guess its roof pitch is about probably close to a 10-12, I would guess. I think both houses on the left and the right range between probably an 8 and a 10 to 12 pitch.
David, with the 9/12 pitch, does the height of the roof change at all, or is it the same?
It lowers.
It does.
So I kept the top plate of the
Okay.
second floor consistent, and then just basically dropped it.
Okay. I was one of the nay votes, and I think that is a fantastic effort to address my concerns of the major pitch.
Yeah, and I was the one talking about something on the front porch, but it really is more of an element, so it's not quite as austere. It's a good word. I don't remember using it, but it's a good word. So I think adding the expanded plinth, you called it, would there be a paved area, or it looked like it was planted in the sketch? Right there.
No, I would imagine, so if you look at the site plan, there's proposed, there's kind of an odd topography to the lot that isn't really, the existing lot basically has a bench in the backyard, and so I was proposing a brick retaining wall to allow me to not alter the existing topography, but still allow a car to not bottom out, basically. So retain the yard, but allow the drive to slope consistently. So I would imagine that these are effectively retaining walls, brick retaining walls that match the same material as the plinth. And then they'd be planters.
Planters, okay.
Another thing that stuck out to me with the original proposal were the windows on the side, the vertical windows. But now that you've lowered the pitch of the roof, I feel like those don't stand out to me so much anymore. And actually, I don't really see them.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, those windows just made the roof seem even taller. So now I don't have an issue with those windows. I think those are fine.
Looks like you're batting 1,000 today. Any more comments? So you're going to be back for approval?
He's on for the July 6th.
July 6th.
Should actually be heard.
I'm only one of the nays, so he might want to hear from the other nays.
The roof was my concern before, so I think this looks wonderful.
Okay, great.
And I think it's great that you're investing in the neighborhood. You've been in the neighborhood, if I recall correctly, and it's your hood, so glad you're staying in it.
Thank you.
I was one of the nays, and I appreciate the effort you put into taking comments and concerns into consideration, and I like what you put together.
Thank you.
So I was a yay.
No, you don't like it.
Why did you do this? No, I'm kidding. No, I think you have reached a very good place with the design and done things that still capture the very creative way of working with the guidelines to come up with a very good solution, it appears to me. And I think your modifications still capture the essence of what you're trying to accomplish. Well done.
So Dave, I remembered at that meeting you were concerned that you would have to redesign the whole project, and you didn't. Just a few modifications, and it seems like we're, pretty amenable to that. So thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Feel the love.
We have no action to take, so if there are no other comments,
Okay.
we'll move to the next.
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation.
See you July 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a presentation for informational purposes only on a proposed gymnasium and storm shelter addition, or I guess on proposed gymnasium storm shelter additions, plural, at Wilson Elementary and Edgemere Elementary schools. Rita, do you want to chime in about the... So we sent public notice for the one that you just heard, because that is an actual case that had been on the agenda before, had been noticed before. We did not send any public notice on these two items. We are not taking action on these two items. We don't have an application on these two items. The intent is that the applicant will submit this next week, and you'll be reviewing this at the July meeting. But this is for informational purposes only. The commission can ask questions about what's presented, but we're not getting into the nitty-gritty meat of design review with this, just to...
So keep our comments to ourselves, just ask questions.
Yeah.
It's just a presentation,
Right.
so.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jack Joyner with JHBR Architecture. I might also add, so we are going to be on the agenda for July. We've also, ahead of that meeting, met with the neighborhood committees in both these historic neighborhoods. So we've gotten comments and feedback. So what you see today is a result of some of those comments. So, like I said, we're in the preliminary design phase for Wilson and Edgemere. So I'm going to go ahead, next slide, I'll start with Wilson. So this is a site plan. The blue is existing Wilson Elementary. You see kind of the red color, that is the new proposed gymnasium. So what we look at on the site plan, two things. We want to satisfy the neighborhood requirements, and we also want to satisfy school staff, students, their needs, which include student safety and preserving as much green space, play space as we possibly can. So on this project, what you see, we're proposing 21st Street and Dewey. We want to take that gymnasium so that we can preserve as much play space as possible and stick it in the southwest corner adjacent to the parking lot. So what we look at is where are the existing homes, the existing setbacks. This one along Dewey, we want to go 5 feet from the existing fence, 30 feet from the center of the street. And like I said, I'm going to keep this brief, not details, but that would be the big variance from current homes, or a little bit more offset than that. But when we looked at this placement, the principal, the district, they thought this would be the best opportunity. When you're talking about students, you don't want hidden areas of playgrounds, sight lines that can't be seen. So this seemed like the optimal location for the gymnasium. The green piece is kind of a covered canopy. So it won't be an enclosed corridor, but it'll just be a covered area so students can get from the school to the gymnasium safely.
Did you say we could ask questions? Is that okay? Is there a portion of the building missing from the east part of this, the site plan that you've shown?
Well, yeah, you don't see...
The original building is not on the site plan.
Right, what we did,
right?
what you see at existing is kind of, that's where we cut off our site survey.
Okay.
So we didn't have that building footprint yet.
So that's the addition that you're showing on the site plan right now, right?
Right.
There's actually more building on this block.
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Good point.
yeah, they've got an existing, they've got an existing gymnasium and school building to the right there also. That's correct. We will add that to the next.
Well, and part of what we look at is built to not built, part of the site and that sort of thing, and when a big part of the building is missing, that kind of throws the visual off a little bit.
I see that. Well, and we'll add that for our, I think we're going to submit next Tuesday.
Did you say there's a gymnasium in the original building?
It's a multi-purpose room. That's where they,
Multi-purpose room.
it's not a gymnasium. They have physical education there.
Okay.
They do their arts, this is an arts school. They do their arts programs there. It's not sufficient for what the new gymnasium will provide. Now, when I say gymnasiums, it's also doubling as a safe room for the school. Okay. This is just a close-up of the floor plan. This is a program that was set forth by the district. So every school in the district gets the same size gymnasium, the same restrooms, the same offices. It's not for competition. There are no bleachers. So just a snapshot of the floor plan. I've set this up here prior to showing you my elevations, just snapshots of the existing Wilson Elementary. So you see the original that's not on that site plan, the addition that was done, 4 or 5 years ago, just as a reference to what we're going to show next. So what you see on my right, that was the new addition, Mr. Parks, you asked that you're familiar with, the covered canopy that gets you from, we have a few modifications to make inside the school to get students to the gymnasium. And what we're trying to do is just complement and mimic the existing materials that were done on the original school and the most recent addition. Obviously, you see on our new addition, we won't, being a safe room, we're not going to have windows. But community was pretty adamant about, hey, let's try to mimic those windows, but just with a different material to keep that same look. Okay, and this is Edgemere. So we're over 32nd and Hudson. Once again, existing Edgemere is in blue. The red is the gymnasium. This one was a little unique. We're not encroaching, we don't think, on setbacks that are unrealistic. We are coming off of 32nd Street quite a bit, and the reason we're doing that is existing sanitary sewer. School budget does not allow for site utility relocation, so that dictates the site location of this gymnasium. So in particular, I think what we're going to address in the official submittal is the homes on Hudson. If you go to the next slide, I can. This is, once again, same floor plan, same spaces, gymnasium, office, administration, restrooms. Okay, so here are the snapshots of the existing Edgemere. Lots of brick, cast stone, pretty ornate details. We will not be able to duplicate all those details with our budget, but we'll get pretty close. Next slide, please. So this is the gymnasium. Once again, similar materials, brick, cast stone. We've got the window configuration, once again, with no glazing because of the safe room component. That is the covered canopy that you see in the foreground. Yep, next, please. And so I thought this was important to show. If you look at the bottom photograph, looking along Hudson. So there's about a 8-foot grade difference from the street to the site property, and then the building itself is another 30 feet. So there's approximately a 40-foot structure there if you're on the homes on the east side of Hudson. Now there will be a couple of landscape barriers. There are existing trees already on the street, and then we'll also provide a landscape barrier between those trees and our gymnasium to kind of soften that edge. So just a real quick preview of what our intentions are when we come back and submit in the July meeting.
Okay. Any questions?
What is the percentage of extra cost to make something a safe room?
Tough question to answer,
Stump the architect.
Yeah, stump the architect. You've got, I think when we got estimates on this, the current projection is 185 square foot. So that's with the safe room. So I think if you were to take that off, you could carve $20 off of that, $25 a square foot. Most of the components are already there. You're just having to reinforce structure.
How thick are the walls?
I'm sorry?
The reinforced concrete walls?
Tilt-up concrete.
Tilt-up?
So a safe room designed to withstand a particular...
Well, we're following
event?
FEMA guidelines. We're not being funded by FEMA, so we don't have to provide all the public spaces, but I can't tell you off the top of my head what that is, if it's 250.
Yeah, so to withstand an EF3 tornado, or do you know that? Okay.
I don't.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm afraid to say that.
Did you say it's not going to be open as a public space? Did I hear that? Or since it's not being
It's not
funded?
my decision, but that's the conversations I've heard, that it's for the school only.
Oh, okay.
But it will hold, informational purposes, it's going to hold 1,000 kids and staff members, so it more than handles the school.
And that school only has, what, 200 and something?
I think she
at
said about
Edgemere?
almost 300.
300? Okay.
Well, that's Wilson. I'm not sure about Edgemere.
Okay.
And both of these fall within, I know Wilson falls within the HP zoned, and Edgemere is zoned HP as well?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Wilson is actually within Mesta Park,
Right.
although it's on the border with Mesta and Heritage Hills.
Right.
And then Edgemere is within Edgemere Park.
Well, it seems like I've seen maps somewhere along the way that clipped the school out of Edgemere, something or another at some point along the way, but it is in fact zoned
So,
HP.
yeah, Edgemere has a SPUD because they were going to do the community
School?
health
Yeah.
facility, but the SPUD retained the historic
Okay,
preservation
okay.
oversight.
Okay, very good.
Staff had a question about what's going in the windows that aren't really windows. What is that material?
Well, if you look at Edgemere, the last one we did, we're looking at infill with a brick, because that's consistent. Yeah, okay, so if you look at these existing photographs, it's brick and cast stone, and that's it. So obviously, we don't want to introduce a new material. So if you go to the rendering, it'll be a brick infill, kind of what we've shown. So if you go back to Wilson, and maybe Mr. Parks, you can help me out here, I think we've got an opportunity to use some other materials. We've got brick, cast stone, and I don't know if you got it, if it's a EFS material or stucco on that, but I'm sorry.
I can't remember. I wasn't actually
Oh, you weren't.
involved in the design of the project while I was at the firm, but I don't know what materials were actually used.
So we're hoping, and we actually think if we can use the EFS material in the gymnasium, it actually helps break up the mass of brick and it'll be more aesthetically pleasing. So we've got those materials to work with. We've got, it's hard to tell EFS from the lighter colored brick, but there's also a lighter colored brick going on at that front entry.
So the walls are like it's forms with concrete, right?
Tilt-up.
Tilt-up concrete, brick veneer.
Brick veneer, right?
And then some opportunities to use an EFS material.
Because there's a townhome project in Bricktown that they talk about how many miles per hour they can withstand. And don't quote me, I think it was about 270 miles an hour or something that they could withstand. It wasn't an F factor, but.
Yeah, and really it's the tilt-up that gives you that protection. The brick and the EFS is kind of a facade, just for looks.
Okay, it's the first time staff has seen this also?
Yes, I've seen the site plans, but hadn't seen, until we got the presentation just the other day, hadn't seen the renderings yet.
So is this going to be coming to us?
So this will come on July 6th. So if there were any other, I think, questions or particular details that you wanted to know more about, I think they'd be happy to try and answer that and or address it prior to the July 6th meeting.
And Mrs. Friddle, is that, I think, Tuesday the 31st we were going to submit to you?
Yes, next Tuesday is the deadline for the July 6th.
Yeah, we can't make comments to address, so.
So I'll ask a question.
There we go.
Have you given thought to, for instance, on this elevation, the various depths that there might be between the materials? In other words, the difference between the plane of the brick and the plane of the ephes, are they in the same plane, or is there offsets in depth?
That would be offset. Yeah.
Okay.
So
if in your formal documentation, if you could help address what those offsets are.
That's a comment.
Absolutely.
Put in formal, this is like Jeopardy. You have to ask.
Perhaps I'm wondering if it might be helpful to have some of that information.
Yeah. What we're trying to do is, create some depth, shadow the sight lines. We just don't want a big wall out there. So yes, we will give you that information.
Okay, any more questions? All right. Well, thank you for coming today.
All right, thank you.
For the presentation.
Appreciate it.
All right. Administrative approvals. $12 of them. You want to say anything?
I have nothing to
Okay,
report.
withdrawals? Any withdrawals? No. Administrative approach? No. City Council? No. Board of Adjustment?
And we reported this last time as well, but we have one case that the commission approved that has been appealed by a neighboring property owner. That'll go on June 2nd to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay. All right. Planning Commission, nothing. Anything from the ad hoc committee?
I think they're done, yeah.
You did. Your work is finished, okay.
I reached out to another property owner, so we're waiting to hear back on their interest in having 2 of their buildings listed.
Good.
And that's just kind of in the works.
Anything from,
Anybody has any, somebody
right,
that did a tax credit project, those are our, kind of our primary
right,
targets.
makes sense. Anything from municipal councilor? All right, next meeting date. I gotta turn my-
Did I ask something about the Board of Adjustment appeal? Who would you'll be there, right, Rita, of course?
No, another attorney in our office staffs the Board of Adjustment, and so she will be there.
Typically, I am there, but it coincides with the statewide preservation conference, so I won't be there. Lisa Chronister, who's the head of the division that we're within, the current planning and urban design division, will attend the meeting, and she will have, I'll kind of brief her on the history of the case and the staff reports and all of that information, so that she should be prepared to answer questions from the board about the commission's decision.
Because this one affected me directly. I want to make that publicly known, that I tried to show this property owner's property, and she denied me access to it because I voted for that.
Vindictive.
I was evicted. I feel like going to the Board of Adjustment. Can I go to that?
The 10-day appeal period is
Denied
up.
me a showing.
But there's nothing wrong with George appearing at the Board of Adjustment should he so choose, is that
He
correct?
could speak for himself.
That's correct.
Not for us.
As an
Not-
individual citizen.
Yes, he could not say, and I am a member of HB Commission, because you had not been approved by this body to speak on their
Correct.
behalf.
Right.
But you could say, I, George Massey, individual citizen, have this opinion,
Okay.
without mentioning that you're even a member.
I don't-
or
I
that
know
you've
no
heard
one.
it.
I don't know any of these people.
It will come up, because somebody will say,
I'm
I
sure
know
this
him.
owner will,
I
yeah.
remember you, yeah.
Yeah. So just be careful that you're not speaking on behalf of this body.
Shall we officially disown George?
Yes.
I had my Groucho Marx glasses. You'd never know me.
Could you wear a disguise? Okay. All right, the next regular scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is July 6, 2016, at 2 p.m. right here. New applications are to receive by May 31st. Is it Tuesday? Yeah. New information on projects continuing from today's meeting. She must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, May 31st, 2016.
So I just broke that rule on all of the ones that we continued over and over and over again. So Angela's waiting for everyone to leave so that she can yell at me.
I thought that was odd.
But we'll work with applicants on that.
I got it now, so, yeah. Well, the next regular scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, June 8th, 2016, from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main, Suite 900. Any items from commissioners? Would our lone citizen like to be heard again? No. Okay.
I own a property inside of Shepherd, and we're going to be developing it.
Okay.
And Katie encouraged me to stick around and hear what they would say about it.
Okay.
It's always useful, and to know kind of how the process happens.
Yeah, when you figure it out, let us know. Okay. Nothing else, we're adjourned. Thank you.